So last week, the Mets hosted the Giants at Citi Field, and they welcomed back quite a few familiar faces, including Michael Conforto, Wilmer Flores, and JD Davis. Reflecting on his time in Queens, Davis had some interesting words, to say the least, on his experience with the Mets. In 2022, I was one of the only hitters where if I were to hit a home run, I wouldn't be in the lineup the next day or the following day. It would just feel like I was playing every 3, 4, 5 days. It was almost like if I were to go up and get an at bat for the first time in 3 to 4 days, it was more or so, I'm not even trying to get a hit. I'm just trying to be on time right now. I'm just trying to be in survival mode. The now 30-year-old JD Davis was sent to San Francisco along with 3 minor league arms for Darren Ruff at last year's trade deadline.
I'm glad that JD said it because it just proves what we've been saying all along and how we felt all along. And JD Davis is the perfect example of it. And I think what happened with JD Davis is the same thing that could happen with Mark Vientos, who's a guy that you've made a lot of comparisons to as far as their play style. And it was very evident when JD Davis first got here, 2019, when he was a part-time player, he was a utility guy, kind of playing every couple of days, things like that. Wasn't very successful. But then all of a sudden, once he got that everyday playing time, he turned to be a really solid player. And we saw that time and time again. The Mets, for whatever reason, they picked, once again, all these older guys above him. Robinson Cano, Dominic Smith. I mean, they just had so many other guys who played over JD Davis that he became this part-time player, a guy who didn't get consistent playing time. And then, like he said, he finds something good and he goes back on the bench for a couple days. And that's the same exact thing we're seeing happen with Mark Vientos. Now you get to go elsewhere, less pressure. You can just be yourself and get momentum, get rhythm, and all of a sudden you're becoming a really solid player. And we say it all the time. You see it time and time again with guys who they were good, comes to Mets, not so good, leave, they become good again. I mean, it just happens time and time again. And it's like, he makes it so obvious. He said it to the whole world. And you still do the same stuff with a guy like Mark Vientos. And it's just like, how many more times do we have to do this? And then you also lost a young piece in Carson, see more things like that for Darren Ruff. I mean, it's still crazy to me that the Mets got rid of young pieces on a ready veteran team to get a 38-year-old guy who didn't even make it to the second year of his contract. I mean, it's crazy to me that they do like just these mistakes that you should never even think of. I mean, there's just no way where you're a team and you're trying to, we say asset management, things like that. You say, you know what? Let me get rid of a piece for a guy who's 10 years older. You never should be actively pursuing guys who are above age 37 because they only get worse from there. I mean, and they do it consistently over and over and over again, and it never works, but they keep doing it and they won't just admit to their mistakes. And they keep making the same mistakes. And it just becomes so frustrating as a fan. And JD Davis, he just made it so obvious because it's like you see it happening all over again. And I would hate for Mark Vientos to end up getting traded because there's been no playing time for him on the team, and it becomes a productive power hitter which the team could desperately need. So it's just been very frustrating that, like what he said, we've seen it, we saw it coming, and it happened. And it still happened.
The age-old story of someone leaves the Mets, gets out of here, and then all of a sudden they're an amazing player. The Justin Turners of the world. I mean, Daniel Murphy was good here, but he was even better when he left. And now JD Davis, I mean, he's having a really good season in San Francisco as well. So we've all come to see that in these last few years that it's not really just the players that the Mets have. The problem is the Mets and not really the players overall, which they have not been able to tap into with the poor player development. Now, as for JD Davis, I don't think he did himself any favors when he's here because I don't remember him hitting many home runs post that 2019 season that he had. I think it was more of him. I mean, we all know that he still can't hit a fastball to save his life. He did not pull the ball at all when he was here. So he definitely did not make his case well, but we all know the effects of every day to half day reps. I mean, If you play every day, you get the experience, you have a better chance of succeeding at the major league level. And we're seeing the exact same thing with Mark Vientos right now, who is kind of a similar player to JD Davis. There is a lot of swing and miss, there is a lot of frustration, but there's a lot of power upside. Right now, it's even been worse where Mark Vientos isn't even hanging around right now. He's in the minor leagues. He's going to break the AAA home run record. It's a perfect example of what happened with JD Davis. I wasn't the biggest fan of JD Davis, but I do know that overall, he is a good hitter. I know he is a good hitter at his best. There was a lot of frustrating things that went on with JD Davis. We all know that he had to go. He needed a new place of scenery at the trade deadline. He should have been moved a lot earlier. Do I think that he's lying when it comes to this whole situation? No, absolutely not. We've seen this so many times with so many other players. 100%. I'm not surprised whatsoever at all that this happened with JD Davis. And we all know that he was going to be a good hitter wherever he wound up, and he was going to, start figuring it out again if he played every day until they actually do go into the offensive style that is made for 2023 and beyond. This is going to continue to be a problem. We've seen tons of teams have great hitting development. Recently, we all know the Dodgers do it well. The Rangers have really developed hitting very well in the last few years. I mean, hopefully the Mets eventually could be one of those teams, and I'm hoping it is, because we do have a lot of top-heavy talent, especially offensively and position players that could be good. And I just want to see them reach that full potential with the Mets and not somewhere else.